All right, here's where we got issues to discuss. This is from the Bible study site. It's a timeline from Adam down to Noah to where the flood starts. So let's talk about Adam. He's way back here. That's zero in the 6,000 year cycle that they talk about is the biblical cycle of Earth to now, which I disagree with that. It cannot possibly be. Adam was made from clay of the earth, unless the earth just popped up in one day and the clay was here. Now, I know what clay is. Clay is it consists of DNA, and I believe Adam was made out of the clay of what was prior, the men of old, the men of renown, which were the Titans, which was the Gaia story, the Sophia Pistis story, where she created the heaven and earth on her own volition, and then a bunch of monsters, literally. I know it sounds crazy, it sounds insane, but I literally believe that is true now from the research that I've done. I found a dragon, I found a leviathan, I found all the giants, had them DNA tested. There's so much that has been discovered that cannot be ignored at this point. Now, so let's go before Adam. So what was here before Adam? Well, there was Gaia, there was the Titans, there was the Olympians. They overthrew each other. They had wars. They were turning people into stone. They had cyclopses. They had animals and people in crazy mixtures and giants and absolutely insane things. And I believe I found Atlantis, and it's the Eye of the Sahara, and I have videos on it. It's extremely well documented. There is virtually no question it was the Eye of the Sahara. And I believe at the 11,500 years ago, as stated by Plato, it was 9,100 years or so prior to him. That puts it around 11,500 years prior to us. Plato collapsed, and it drained the Sahara. So now, I know the Sahara was there, full of water, the Leviathan was there, and the dragon was there because they are washed over from that waters. So I'm saying that was 11,500 years ago. What was prior to that? Not too much that I can think of, because those things are on the surface of the earth. The dragon, the Leviathan, all of that stuff is on the surface. It's not buried, so that didn't happen millions of years ago like they talk about. It's not even close. And the KT boundary is a layer of clay. All right, talk to your professors, talk to your geologists, ask them about it. It is a layer of clay. That clay is the clay of skin. That is the outward flesh, the outward presented tissues eroded from the creatures that were soaked in the Great Flood and deposited as a worldwide bathtub ring. It had nothing to do with an impact of anything. The iridium is in there because iridium is in your blood. All right, iridium is in your blood. Every transition metal is in your blood. And those transition metals are there to transition molecules through your body. They pick them up and they deliver them. They transition. That is their nature. Ask any biology professor, anybody that knows the chemistry of the body, how it works. They pick up on a certain pH and they deliver on a certain pH. That's how the exchange happens. And then there are other places in the lungs. There's a pressurization change which causes some change there. But anyway, so here we are from chaos, Gaia. Nobody knows anything about it. Even the Anunnaki, they had no clue how it happened. They just called it beginning times. But they do say it was chaos, and from that the water separated from here and so forth. And after that, it's pretty well recorded, but it's just extremely spectacular and hard to believe. So let's get to Atlantis again. I say Atlantis was real, and I found Atlantis, and it is the Eye of the Sahara, and it was owned by Poseidon, and Plato documents it so well. how the place was laid out, and you know how they lived, and you know the different. And I found all the stuff. And here, I'll show you. All right, this is Atlantis right here, and I have the video up there. It's called Atlantis: Details Scrutinized and Factual, and it's that's Atlantis, and the straits is up here. It all drained out into there. You can go up there and watch it, but all this stuff drained out from here. And if you go on Google Earth, you'll see it. It's all very clear. And go up and watch this video. And then I have another one, First and Material Ancient Timeline Been Established, which is earlier than what I did. This goes back, oh, I don't know, a few months. But now I'm homing in a little closer. All right. All right, by the way, there was 2 floods at least. I mean, I'm sure there was a lot of floods on the Earth, I would imagine, but there was at least 2 major ones. And you can see the one that was here. This whole area flooded out into the Atlantic here. This is Africa. And this is where Atlantis is right here. And when it dropped, it drained. You can see, if you look at this, you can't really miss that, I don't think, if you look at it with a critical eye. That this whole area drained out, and that was the cause of it. And I'll show you why I can say that. That is Atlantis, and it's on Herodotus's map. It's right there on Herodotus's map. It's unbelievable. They don't understand this. They're looking at Santorini and Crete and all these places. This dropped, and everything ran out into the ocean. And Plato says there was so much mud, they will never speak of mud again. Now, they said the straits collapsed. Nobody ever said that it was the Straits of Hercules. Let's get back on here. All right, here we go. They had said the straits collapsed, and here are the straits right here. And these were manned. If you go back up here, you can find over in this area there was posts and things. This whole area was developed, I believe, and this was the straits that allowed them in and out through the Atlantis mountain range. And this was the straits. That's what they said, it was straits. Well, there's other straits too. There's straits of Hercules, there's straits of Magellan, there's whatever. There's straits all over the place. Now, this was the Atlantis. And Atlantis is still got the boats here. Nobody seems to care. So I'll show you. Maybe you'll care and go there and figure it out. But on these rings, you see over here? Right in here. These are the boat slips where they come in off of the coast. And then they come up to the rings. Oops, I'm sorry. They're over here. There's these kind of lines. Now, you see this? I showed this. And here they are right here. Here we go. Now I got it. All right, these are all the channels that come in, and every one of them leads up to a boat slip. Every single one. Every single one. And I think these are the boats that are in the slips. And that is Atlantis, and that is one of the rings of Atlantis right here. And if you go to the other side of the ring, which is right here, these are where the houses were, or whatever these structures are, foundations. There's a pathway that comes right through. That's one of the bridges. You see the openings like this here? Okay. Then you come in through, this is the other side, and that's exactly what Plato said. He said exactly how it worked. Then this goes into the next ring and the next ring. The reason they're different colors is because they had them coated with different metals. And these are the colors of transition metals. Now, everything ran out of this cut right here. And they know this. They say they think it collapsed offshore. Why they can't see this, I have no idea. They say offshore collapsed and created a huge amount of debris out here. Well, it didn't. It came out of here. Anyway, so that's just how that really is. Now, what does that tell us? Is when did this happen? And what about this fish and the dragon? That's the fish. In case you don't know about the fish and the dragon. There's the fish. Alright, and there he is right here. You see, that's his tail. Comes up here, that's his fin. These are his scales. Alright. And right above him, he's being attacked by this dragon right here, and he's eating, what he spit out at him is eating into his flesh. Alright, you see it eating right into his flesh on his back. It says in the old text, it says he attacked his fin with power, and that is some power. You want to see, here's his head, here's it. They have that funny looking nose that they have. And this is all the stuff that he spit out at him. And if you look down here real close, this is what it looks like. Alright, that's some serious looking stuff. And he spit that out at him, and it hit his fin, and here's what it did. As soon as it hit here, it started to make this kind of a change, and it looks like combusted to me. I don't know what you see, but I see some kind of decomposition, combustion, fire, acid. You make your own decision. And I also see a dragon up here, which is his dragon's head. And that's a little fluty thing, and that's that fiery eye that they have. There's flames and trails back from their eye. And this is his scaled throat right here, running down. That's where the stuff spit out of. Now let's look at where his throat goes. And this is the fluty looking stuff on the sides of dragons you see in the parades and stuff. This is his neck. You see that? And that runs for literally hundreds of miles. This is a big, 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 big creature. And I've done an extensive amount of work on this, and he is decaying here on the desert floor, and this is the effluent border of the decay of his decomposition. And it was a red dragon, they said, and pretty red. And he goes all the way back here, and all the way back here until we hit the end of his tail, which is also decomposing, and that is running off with the transition metals running out from the scales on his decomposing dragon tail. And this goes back, and there's more. It's fluty stuff all back in here. You see all this fluty looking stuff? They have these little spots on their tails. You see that? And it's all over the place. I mean, it's very, very, they're intricate looking creatures. Now, so here we have a dragon in the desert, taken up all the way up to the Mediterranean, off to the coast here. We have a Leviathan. We have the collapse of Atlantis, which we have dated at 11,500 years ago, according to Plato and Solon, and the priests of Egypt, who were the descendants of Atlantis. So I am going to go with that discussion, because I'm also seeing things that override whatever everybody else has been saying. So this is not just fairy tales. This is not silly stuff. This actually occurred, and it occurred. It was exactly what was written. So let's just see if we can understand it. I'm saying this guy here died, and this guy here was laying here, and this ran off over the top of his body. All right, so you can see it. You can see the runoff was here, and it's running over his tail, and it ran over the swale of a tail. The swale of a tail. All right, it comes back here, and it maybe would have lifted up a little bit, and it ran over that. As you can see, that's my assessment of what I see here. Is it ran over to here, and it had no way to go, and it overrode there and swished out here. All right, so the fish was here when this event occurred. That is my claim, is from what I'm seeing. If you can see it any other way, well, good for you. But I'm seeing this is the runoff of the dragon, who is dead, or he's dead now, or I think he's dead. Whatever he has was running off over this fish. Now, how quickly would it run over the fish? Was he decaying here? And then it ran over the fish when Atlantis collapsed? Or was the whole thing one big event? Now they say Atlantis collapsed in one day. It was done. The event was over. Case closed. And I could see where that could happen, because this is unbelievable. It's like pulling the plug on the Sahara Ocean, because this whole thing was an ocean all the way down here. And the people from Atlantis ended up coming over to the highlands of Ethiopia. They said they arrived in the highlands of Ethiopia, and they were sophisticated in every way. That was the statement the Ethiopians made. And they accepted them as gods because they were gods. And they actually turned them into stone, is what they said. This is what was written. I didn't write this. It was written. It said that when they arrived, they attacked them, the Ethiopians, attacked them with every manner of spear and projectile and so forth. And they... Okay, this is right off the wiki, and it is about Nimrod. And Josephus, which was a very good historian long ago in the Egyptian times, wrote this. He said, "Now it was Nimrod who excited them to such an affront and contempt of God." So Nimrod was against God. He was really against God. He was the grandson of Ham, the son of Noah. So he was the grandson of Ham, who was the son of Noah, a bold man and of great strength of hand. He was literally a giant, is what my understanding is. Now, he persuaded them not to ascribe it to God as if it were through his means that they were happy, but to believe that it was their own courage which procured that happiness. It had nothing to do with God. He also gradually changed the government into tyranny, seeing no other way of turning men from the fear of God. Right? So the people were afraid of God at that point. He terrorized them to say, you have to stop liking God. All right, so he changed them into tyranny, seeing no other way to turn them away from God, but to bring them into a constant dependence on his power. That is exactly what we have today. He also said he would be revenged on God if he should have a mind to drown the world again. All right, so he's talking about if God decided to drown the whole world again, he had it all figured out. He's going to build a tower. So for that, he would build a tower too high for the waters to reach, and that would avenge himself on God for destroying their forefathers. Because God destroyed his forefathers, who were the giants. Now the multitude were very ready to follow the determination of Nimrod, who was apparently a very good speaker, a powerful person, and to esteem it as a piece of cowardice to submit to God. And they built a tower, neither sparing any pains nor being in any degree negligent about the work. So they went right at this tower. And by reason of the multitude of hands employed in it, it grew very high, sooner than anyone could expect. But the thickness of it was so great and was so strongly built that thereby its great height seemed upon the view to be less than it really was. It was just enormous, so when you looked at it, it just didn't look as enormous. Now, it was built of burnt brick, cemented together with mortar made of bitumen, that it might not be liable to admit water. The burnt brick was fired in a much hotter kiln than normal, which creates a literally ceramic brick, which they showed tests on this on TV, and it creates an extremely strong brick, and they said they could go miles high with this type of brick. Now, this bitumen is oily pitch. It resists water, and they said they had a tremendous mortar back then. It was just absolutely unbelievable. The bricks went bad, and the mortar is still there. I saw a show the other day. The mortar is still all there. The bricks are gone. They eroded out, but the mortar is very, very tough. Now, so they're building this thing to the heavens, literally to the heavens, to get above the water, is what Nimrod is saying. Now, It was built of the burnt brick cemented with a mortar of bitumen so it couldn't get any water in there. When God saw that they acted so madly, he did not resolve to destroy them utterly, since they were not grown wiser by the destruction of the former sinners. So we had the former guys drowned, and these guys come along, they started all over again. And we did too. But he caused a tumult among them by producing in them diverse languages. So this is the Tower of Babylon they were building, and he made them babble. So, and causing that through the multitude of those languages they should not be able to understand one another. The place wherein they built the tower is now called Babylon, because of the confusion of that language, which they readily understood before, for the Hebrews mean by the word Babel, confusion. Okay, so they understood the language, then they lost the language because God was mad at them for trying to build this tower. And that's Nimrod. And that is long after the flood. Well, no, not long after the flood, but it's after the flood. Okay, this is a mind exploder. Now, this is the lost book of King Og. Now, I am not making any claims here, but this is apparently in the Vatican archives and has been translated by Vatican scholars. And they just did this recently, and they are releasing this information. That's what it says. Now, here you can go in this and look this all up and see what it has to say, but they are saying that this was from, as far as Father Martin has informed me, these are the only known writings of any of the Rephaim. And this is the last, this is King Og, who was, he was referenced in the Bible, along with Nimrod. So this is the time frame we're talking about, Nimrod and Og. And Og was the size of a cedar tree, they said. We'll read it, and then I'm going to leave it at this for today, but think about this, because we're going to keep going, or I'm going to keep going. You can do whatever you want, but I'm going to keep going until I try to get to where I can figure some of this out. And if somebody has something to offer, try to be brief and concise, and see if you can find something that means something, and we'll all try to understand together. But anyway, I'm going to read this. So it says, below is chapter 7 of the Lost Book of King Og. Took myself and my intern of team of Catholic scholars to determine that Og was indeed addressing Moses in this passage. Now that's important, because wait to hear what he has to say. Once the determination had been confirmed by a blessing and admonishment to continue from our superiors, the translation process unfolded in that direction. See above introduction for information on potential liberties taken for broader translations of text. Father Martin, 2016, Santa Barbara, California. The Lost Book of King Og, chapter 7. Listen to this now. Did you think, O corrupt worm of Israel, that I did not stand above the great water in the mountains? All right? He survived the flood. You who have never touched the sky or stood tall over anyone. My meditation, my dreams are your loose-boweled death. He dreams of killing them. Baal of the earth will guide me like he did with Nimrod, the mangled-loined Nephilim worm. This is there's a story here that's very, very strange. We'll go into that one in the next one. Behold, I am Og, the largest man in the land. It's gigantic. Listen to what it says here. What can you possibly do to me? Are you prepared to die? I have watched you crawl. I have watched you crawl into the light. I keep getting these things. I have watched you crawl into the light as a corrupt fecal worm. I have watched your mother Egypt eat your young. Watch now, and I ponder, is this why you now war with me, O worm of Israel? You have slain my neighbor in Shihon. Baal will avenge, and I empowered me, and empowered me. So he's saying Og is saying that Baal, who is the one that they always worshiped to, they had the cow and all, that stuff, and they burnt offerings and things, and they made the golden cow while Moses was up on top of the mountain. This is what they're talking about, and this guy is not friendly to Israel, let me put it that way. Now, you have slain my neighbor in Shihon, Baal will avenge, and empowered me to sever the corrupt worm with force. Wow, sever the corrupt worm with force. Your false god, your weak little men. Og will spit upon your warriors who trail like ants beneath. Who trail like ants beneath. I, Og, will wipe the spittle from my beard. I, Og, will arise when ready, and with the strength in but one arm, Og will break all the horn of Israel. Are the tales of my exploits not traveling to your itching ears, O corrupt fecal worm of Israel, of my power, of how Og did battle against the unspeakable scaled monsters? Og did battle against the unspeakable scaled monsters. Who was Nimrod, it appears, and some other crew along that line, because he was the one that was fighting with Nimrod. So let's go back again, of how Og did battle, Og, him, against the unspeakable scaled monsters in the renowned fields alongside my Nephilim and Rephaim paradise. How we molded to murder, how we turned our wrath and mercy a foreigner, who the old world monsters stood. Stupid fecal worm, stupid corrupt fecal worm, your ox-like stupidity tires me to sleep. And he just goes on, extremely ugly. Oh, bitter, blackened, corrupt fecal worm, did not my royal, smaller self, sorceresses of Baal of the earth, dance and prophesize of your arrival? And he goes on and on. Now, there's a lot more to this. If you read this and find out about Og and Nimrod, it appears that they were in some kind of a battle together, and Og wanted to kill Nimrod, and I guess he eventually did. And I believe that's how it ended. I haven't really gotten too deep into the ending here. I'm sort of taking it bit by bit. But, well, why don't you take it bit by bit, too? Let's see what did happen to Og and Nimrod. But I know they were in battles at the end, and there was this explains circumcision, actually. And believe it or not, very, 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 very strange stuff. And things that could never be explained by reading the text and thinking, what the heck are they talking about? Well, this explains it, but it's more bizarre than even you could possibly make up in any imagination that you might possess. So think about what's happened here. So it's the lost book of King Og. It's on the web, on the net here. And there's Nimrod. He's part of this package. And we will continue this a little deeper as I start to think of what's going on. So we know we're past Noah, and we still have the giants. They were all supposed to be wiped out. Well, this guy is as tall as a cedar tree, they said. They said he was as tall as a cedar tree. So I don't know what else I can say about that. He's one of the biggest people on the earth. Right? See, Baal has thousands of insect-sized God. Come here that I, Og, might bind you with bracelets and cords empowered by Baal, the earth outside the temple. Right? He's a giant guy, and that's what they wrote about, and that's what we're seeing all over the earth. Now, can't even be he's nowhere near the size of the giants that we see on the earth. So I have to say that there were the Titans prior to this, and there was a whole lot of things going on. So that's the way I'm going with this at this point. You think about what you can think about, and see if we can come to some decision on what really did happen in the past. But it's far beyond any imagination, I can tell you that. All right, so Mud Fossil University, come up and subscribe. Make sure you stay on this and see if we can work this out together. There's nobody getting hurt here. I mean, well, you know, we can get hurt if we don't pay attention, maybe. I don't know. Maybe I'm leading you astray with something. I have no clue. I'm just looking at what I see, trying to understand what was written, what it meant, and what it means for the future. That's my goal. That's what I'm up to. All right, and do whatever you think is best. Maybe it's just fun for you, or maybe it doesn't interest you. All right, Mud Fossil University, the Citadel of Truth. Roger, over and out. Okay, I looked it up quick, and it doesn't appear that Nimrod was killed by Og, but that's not certain. Anyway, you can look it up. It's on this. It's in this particular article here. This is called JewishEncyclopedia.com, and you just search on Nimrod in there, and it tells about his demise at the hands of Esau. It appears. Esau. Nimrod was slain by Esau, between whom jealousy existed. All right, so that's it for today.